Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a concept that is, and I'm not exaggerating here, the absolute lifeblood of any business: working capital. It might sound a little like boring financial jargon, but trust me, getting a handle on this can be the difference between a business that soars and one that sinks. So let's kick things off with a bit of a head scratcher, one that gets a lot of entrepreneurs. How on earth can a company be profitable? I mean, sales are coming in, the books look good, but it still suddenly runs out of money and goes bust. Well, the answer almost always comes back to working capital. It's called revolving or circulating capital for a reason. It's the cash that's constantly moving through a business to keep the lights on. You can think of it as the financial oxygen a company needs to breathe day in and day out. Now, if you look at it from an accountant's perspective, the formula is actually pretty simple. You just take your current assets, that's stuff like cash, your inventory, and what your customers owe you, and you subtract your current liabilities, so what you owe your suppliers and other short-term bills. What's left over is a really important snapshot of your company's health, basically its ability to pay the bills right now. Okay, but to really get a grip on this, let's see how it works in the real world. Forget the formulas for a second. We're going to follow the journey of one single product, a batch of coffee beans from a small local roastery. This whole journey is what we call the operating cycle. First, the roastery has to pay cash for the raw green coffee beans. Then, they put in the work to roast and packaging. After that, they sell the finished product to a local cafe, but usually that's on credit, meaning they don't get paid right away. And finally, hopefully, they collect the cash. You see how that cash gets transformed? The goal is for it to come back to the business ready to start the whole cycle over again. But, and this is a big but, here's where the trouble really starts. In reality, the timing of these steps is almost never perfect, and that creates this huge, often invisible challenge for the business. So check this out. Let's say our coffee roastery has to pay its supplier 30 days after ordering the beans. That's cash out the door. But then, after they sell the coffee to the cafe takes another 60 days to pay them. That means there's a 2-month gap where cash has gone out, but no new cash has come in to replace it. And all during that time, they've still got to pay rent and pay their employees. This is the cash crunch, and it's exactly where good, profitable businesses can get into deep, deep trouble. So what do? You can't just pause your business for 2 months. This is where financing comes in. But it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You need the right kind of financing for the right kind of need. We can actually break down working capital into 2 main types. First, you've got permanent working capital. This is the bare minimum amount of cash and inventory you need just to operate on a normal day. It's a long-term thing. Then you have temporary working capital. This is the extra juice you need for a seasonal rush, like a huge spike in coffee sales around the holidays, or maybe to handle one massive, unexpected order. To plug that cash gap we were just talking about, businesses usually turn to banks, and banks have a whole toolbox specifically for these kinds of short-term problems. We're talking about things like overdrafts, lines of credit, or even something called factoring, where you can basically sell your unpaid invoices to get cash up front. Each of these tools is designed to smooth out those bumps in the road. Okay, so you just borrow money, problem solved, right? Well, not so fast. Getting this right is an incredibly delicate balancing act, and there are some really serious risks if you get it wrong on either side. The goal isn't just to have a giant pile of cash sitting around. It's about having the right amount for what your business actually needs. It's a Goldilocks situation. Not too much, not too little. Both can be just as destructive. Think about it. If a bank lends a business way too much working capital, it can create this false sense of security. It might be hiding some really deep problems, like maybe they're not managing their inventory well. It can make a business, lazy. They might lose that sharp financial discipline they need to survive. But on the flip side, what if there's too little financing? Well, that can literally suffocate a perfectly healthy and growing company. You can't take on that big new order because you can't afford the materials. You start paying suppliers late, which strains your relationships. You're basically choked off from growth. This kind of imbalance, especially when you have rapid growth without enough working capital to support it, leads to this incredibly dangerous trap called overtrading. And yeah, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's the classic story of a business growing itself to death. And here's how that nightmare unfolds. It all starts with really exciting, aggressive growth. Sales are through the roof. It looks amazing on paper. But all the company's cash is getting tied up making the product and then waiting for customers to pay. So to cover the gap, they have to borrow more money. That means higher interest payments, which start eating away at any profit. It's a vicious cycle that just keeps going until eventually the business is completely starved of cash. All right, so after all that doom and gloom, let's pull all these pieces together. What's the big lesson here when we're talking about the financial health of your business? But one really handy number to keep an eye on is called the current ratio. It's just your current assets divided by your current liabilities. Now, every industry is a bit different, but a good rule of thumb is a ratio of about 2 to 1. That's the classic sign of healthy liquidity. It means for every dollar you owe in the short term, you've got $2 in assets you can turn into cash pretty quickly. But if you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, let it be this. There's an old saying in business: profit is an opinion, but cash is a fact. You can't pay your employees with a profit figure on a spreadsheet. You can't pay your rent with it. You need actual, real cash in the bank. And that's really the whole point. Proper working capital management, it isn't just about surviving one tough month. It's about making sure that whole operating cycle we talked about, from buying the beans to collecting the cash, can happen over and over and over again, smoothly and successfully. It's what lets a business keep going and ultimately lets it grow. So I'll leave you with this final thought. Whether you're running a business, investing in one, or you're just curious, growth is an exciting thing, but it always, always consumes cash. So the real question you have to ask is this: are you managing your growth, or is your growth managing you? Thanks for joining the Explainer.